I hadn't planned to stay long. Just enough time to give Trevor his gift, say hello to Molly, and get back home before the wine started flowing and the smiles started cracking. But from the moment I stepped through their front door, something felt off. The foyer had been redecorated, new chandelier, polished floors, a faint scent of jasmine candles that didn't quite mask the undertone of something else. Desperation, maybe. The living room was packed. Strangers in expensive suits I didn't recognize sipping from crystal glasses and laughing too loudly. Meredith floated through the space in a dress that probably cost more than my entire living room set, ushering trays of catered appetizers past wine-stained smiles. Trevor greeted me with arms wide and a grin too wide. "Mom, you made it. Come in, come in." I handed him the wrapped toolbox set I'd picked out. Practical, understated, nothing flashy. He took it, eyes flicking briefly to the corner before setting it aside without opening it. "You've got to see what we did upstairs," he said, already guiding me toward the staircase. "I'll just say hi to Molly first," I said. "You'll see her later." He brushed off. "Come on, I really want you to see the bathroom remodel." That's when I felt a hand on my sleeve. Molly. She stepped beside me quietly, her voice so low I barely caught it. "Grandma, you need to leave now." I looked at her, eyes wide, face pale, and all I could see was the little girl who once begged me not to leave her first sleepover. I didn't ask questions. I turned back to Trevor, smiled politely, and said, "It's getting late. I think I'll head out now." I reached for my coat. It had started 3 days before the party, just after lunch. I'd barely folded the newspaper when Trevor burst into my living room without knocking. He didn't look angry, not yet, but his eyes were full of something manic. Hope, maybe, or desperation dressed up as confidence. "Dad's not here to say no anymore," he said, not as a statement of grief, but of strategy. He launched straight into the pitch, a real estate syndicate, guaranteed returns, pre-leased commercial properties. "It's a chance to get in early, Mom," he said, pacing near the bookshelf. "I've already got a few names lined up, but I want you in first, 'cause this time it's going to work." I waited until he finished. Then I stood up, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out the folder. Manila, thick, labeled in black Sharpie, "Trevor's Investments 2014-2023. Miami Condos," I said, placing the first packet on the table. $75,000. Developer disappeared before groundbreaking. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. Cryptocurrency mining gear, $50,000. Company vanished overnight. Website gone. Emails bounced. "That was food truck business," I said over him. "Partner turned out to be a convicted embezzler. You didn't vet him." 3 months later, everything was gone. "Mom, you're stuck in the past." "No," I said calmly. "I'm stuck with the receipts." His jaw clenched. "You never believe in me. You never have." "That's not true," I said. But he was already heading toward the door, voice rising. "You think you're the only one who's ever built anything. Maybe you don't see it yet, but when this deal blows up in a good way, I'm not cutting you in. Don't come crawling back." And just like that, he was gone. The door slammed. The house fell silent. I stared at the folder on the table for a long time before picking it up and returning it to the cabinet. I'd told myself for years that he was just young, just impulsive, just trying. But the numbers didn't lie. The past wasn't history. It was warning. And 3 mornings later, I woke up to a strange tilt in the air. Something about the house felt wrong. The sun was barely up when I stepped outside to run a quick grocery errand. The air was cool, soft with spring, but something made me pause halfway down the walkway. My car looked wrong, lower, somehow slumped like a tired animal. All 4 tires flat. I crouched down, ran my fingers along the rubber. The punctures weren't random. Small, sharp holes near the sidewalls. I recognized them. Roofing nails, the same kind I kept in the workshop behind the house. The mechanic at Morrison's didn't waste time sugarcoating. Deliberate. All 4 were hit the same way. Took skill. He tried to make conversation while I waited for the estimate, but I was somewhere else entirely, somewhere between memory and suspicion. I didn't call Trevor. I didn't need to. He'd been angry, no humiliated. And humiliation has a way of turning sons into strangers. I just couldn't bring myself to say the words out loud yet. Later that afternoon, I was watering the garden when Mrs. Henderson waved me over from her porch. She leaned against the railing, eyes squinting toward my driveway. "Your tires," she said, shaking her head. "Saw them this morning. Shame," I nodded. "Mechanic said it wasn't random." She hesitated. "Well, I was out here Tuesday night. You know I like the cool air. I saw someone walking around your car. Did you recognize them?" She looked away, then back. Didn't get a clear view, but they moved like they'd been there before. I didn't press. I didn't need confirmation. Not then. That evening, I sat in my reading chair with a cup of tea, looking out the window at the empty street. No cars, no visitors, just a quiet that felt loaded with something I wasn't ready to name. Then the phone rang. His name lit up the screen. And somehow, I knew what he was going to say. "Mom," Trevor said the moment I answered. His voice was bright, too quick to be natural. "How's your day going?" I paused. "Fine. I've got good news," he said. "Tomorrow's the big 40, and Meredith's putting something special together. Nothing crazy. Just a little dinner family, a few close friends. Molly's really hoping you'll come." He let the name sit there. "Molly, you know," he continued. "She's been asking if Grandpa would come too. She misses you. You two used to be so close." I glanced at the window. The car still sat in the driveway on new tires. My jaw tightened. "Sounds nice," I said cautiously. "Is it just dinner?" "Of course," he said. 620. Nothing formal. Meredith's handled everything. Food, drinks, decor. She's really gone all out. You won't believe the setup. I could imagine it already. Expensive distractions, loud generosity, something to blur whatever truth lay beneath. "I'll be there," I said, but slowly. "For Molly. Great. And Mom, thanks for not making a big deal about last time. I was stressed. Took it out on you. You know how it is." I didn't answer right away. Just listened to the quiet hum on the other end of the line. I remembered the way his voice had cracked when he left last time. How fast the anger turned into silence. This version of him felt rehearsed. Still, it was Molly's name that made the decision, not his. 6 sharp, I said. "Perfect. You won't regret it." I ended the call and stared at the phone a while longer. The house was still. The sky was starting to darken. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a question wouldn't leave me alone. I just couldn't shake the feeling that something had already begun. I knew the moment I stepped through the door that this wasn't just a family dinner. The chandelier was new, real crystal, judging by the way it caught the light. The living room furniture had been replaced with sleek, modern pieces. Wine glasses sparkled on the sideboard beside a row of bottles I recognized from high-end restaurants. Everything gleamed. Everything whispered, borrowed. Meredith floated over in heels too tall for comfort and a dress that didn't suit a family gathering. "Elaine, you look wonderful," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek. Come in. Can I get you a glass of wine?" She didn't wait for the answer. A glass appeared in my hand, already half full. Trevor came in next, all grins and gestures. "Mom, I'm so glad you came. Really, it means a lot." He introduced me to friends I'd never met, slick, young, over-polished, and laughed too loudly at every story. The wine kept flowing. Meredith hovered near my elbow, topping off my glass before I even noticed it was low. "You have to see the master bath," Trevor said, eyes gleaming. "The marble alone is worth the walk upstairs." I smiled politely. "Maybe later." "No, really, we redid everything. It's something you'd appreciate." He stepped closer. The room felt warmer than before, and not from the wine. Just a quick look. "You'll love it." I shifted in my seat legs, heavy vision, soft around the edges. I wasn't drunk, but I was being pushed somewhere I hadn't agreed to go. That's when I felt a hand on my arm. Molly, pale still in her college hoodie hair, pulled back in a rush. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Grandma, please, you need to leave." Now I looked at her eyes, wide, jaw tight, the quiet urgency of someone who'd already heard too much. I didn't ask. I stood, set the wine down, and grabbed my coat from the rack. Trevor's voice followed me toward the door. "Mom, where are you going?" "We haven't cut the cake yet." I didn't answer. I only looked at Molly, And for the first time that evening, someone finally looked back with the truth. The taxi smelled faintly of mint and old vinyl. I sat in the back, clutching my purse tighter than I meant to. My coat was still unbuttoned, and the wine was still in my system, but the fog in my head was clearing fast. The streetlights slid past the window like silent witnesses. I pulled out my phone and dialed Molly. She answered on the first ring. "Grandma, are you okay? Are you safe?" "I'm fine," I said. "I'm in a cab. Just left the house. Tell me what's going on." A long pause, then a door closing in the background. Muffled voices vanished. I overheard them last night. She said, her voice low. They were talking in the kitchen. Mom said the wine would do most of the work. Dad kept asking if the documents were ready. I sat straighter. "What documents?" "They had lawyers upstairs," she said. "In the guest room. After dinner, they were going to bring you up. Say it was just a quick signature thing. Something about transferring business rights. Dad said if they timed it right, you'd be too relaxed to read the fine print." My throat went dry. "All those drinks," I said slowly, the sudden interest in the upstairs bathroom. "Grandma, I didn't know how to stop it. I couldn't sleep. I almost didn't go tonight, but I knew if you showed up, they'd do it." I closed my eyes. "And you're sure I heard everything Mom said? Once we have her signature, we don't owe her anything else." I felt something break, then not my heart exactly. That had happened years ago. This was cleaner, colder, a final confirmation. "You did the right thing, sweetheart," I said quietly. "You got me out." "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. I couldn't let them do that to you. You didn't and you won't. But I need you to stay quiet now. No matter what they ask you, I will." The taxi turned onto Maple. My porch light was still on. And just as the car slowed, I realized this wasn't the end of something. It was the start of what needed to happen next. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I moved through the motions, washed my face, folded the blanket over the armrest, turned off the kitchen light, but my mind kept pacing the same loop. They were going to steal everything, not just the company, the work, the name, the 40 years I spent building something. So he wouldn't have to struggle the way we did. In the morning, I made coffee strong enough to wake the dead. The bitterness steadied me. I stood by the front window, looking out at the street, watching the wind move through the trees, like nothing had happened. Around 10, I saw Mrs. Henderson on her porch, watering the planters lining her railing. I grabbed my coat and walked over, slow and deliberate. "Dorothy," I said. She looked up, eyes kind but sharp. "Morning, Elaine. How's your car holding up after that tire business?" I didn't answer right away. The shop said it was done with roofing nails. All 4 precise punctures. She nodded. "That's what I figured." There was a pause. Then she set the watering can down. "I saw someone Tuesday night by your car." My chest tightened. "Who?" She hesitated. I didn't want to say anything without being sure, but now I think you should know. "It was Trevor." She said it softly, like she hated the sound of it as much as I did. "I was out here just sitting like I do. He didn't see me, walked straight up to your car, knelt down by each tire, doing something with his hands. Looked around a few times, but he was quick. Gone before I could even get off the porch." I closed my eyes just for a second, not to cry. Those tears had dried up years ago, just to center myself. "Thank you," I said. "You did the right thing," she nodded. "So will you." I walked back to the house without a word, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the drawer where I kept the keys to my filing cabinet. The filing cabinet creaked open like it hadn't been touched in years, though I'd opened it often enough, usually to make excuses, usually to cover for him. Each folder was labeled, each page a record of what I'd allowed to continue. Miami, Portland, Phoenix. Condos, coins, kitchens on wheels. Every venture wrapped in hope, every failure sealed in shame. I'd kept it all not to hold it over him, but because part of me kept waiting for the day he'd ask to learn from it. That day never came. I cleared the dining table and laid the files out like a timeline. Each document was a nail he'd handed me, and now I was building something out of them. Not a coffin, just a boundary, when he'd finally have to face. I started with the Miami deal names of other investors, signed contracts, and data transfers. I made copies of the ones I knew mattered most. I added the food truck partnership with the convicted embezzler, complete with the business registration he'd ignored, the crypto gear that never arrived along with his emails, vouching for the seller, 3 large envelopes, no return address, just a note for your records from someone who thought you deserved the truth. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up Meredith's company website, Pinnacle Financial Consulting's Senior Client Relationship Manager. Her smiling face stared back at me, all polished teeth and trustworthiness. I opened a blank document and began drafting a complaint. I listed the attempted manipulation of an elderly family member, the concealed legal documents, the alcohol, the coordinated nature of it all. I didn't embellish. I didn't threaten. I simply described what had happened. I attached receipts, event photos, a scanned version of the lawyer's business card I'd found on the floor near the guest bathroom last month. By the time I sealed the envelopes and scheduled the courier pickups, the light outside had shifted. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't looked at the clock. But I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Stillness. Not peace, but stillness. Then the phone rang, and when I saw his name, I let it ring until the sound disappeared. They didn't knock. The door flew open, and Trevor's voice came first. "What the hell did you do?" He stood in the foyer, red-faced, eyes wild. Meredith was right behind him, tight-lipped hands clenched at her sides. "You destroyed my reputation," he barked. "You think sending those packets to Marcus and David won't come back to you?" "They called me. They're out. All of them." Meredith's tone was cooler. "Pinnacle launched an internal review this morning. I'm under suspension pending investigation. Do you understand what you've done?" I didn't rise from my chair. "I understand exactly." Trevor stepped forward. "You went behind our backs after everything we've been through." "No," I said, "you went behind mine. You planned to drug me. You brought lawyers to your birthday dinner." His jaw tightened. "You don't have proof." I stood then, slow and even. "I have a witness. I have timelines. I have the man who saw you slash my tires." He flinched. Meredith looked away. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You didn't just fail me, Trevor. You tried to erase me. You wanted the business, but not the name. You wanted what I built, just not the part where I'm still here." He said nothing. Neither did she. "You think this is cruel?" I asked. "You should be thankful I only told the truth." Meredith's voice broke. "Then we were drowning. We needed something to work." "You could have asked," I said quietly. "Instead, you schemed." Trevor turned away first. Meredith lingered as if waiting for something to soften in me. It didn't. They walked out without another word. I watched through the window as their car pulled away, their silhouettes small and brittle behind the glass. The silence that followed was not empty. It was earned. And when my phone lit up with Molly's name, I answered before the first ring ended. The locksmith came on a Thursday afternoon. He was polite, quick, and didn't ask questions. By sunset, the house had new locks, new codes, and a bolt that clicked with a sound I hadn't realized I needed to hear. That night, I left the porch light on, not because I expected company, but because I wanted no shadows left to hide in. The corners of the house that once carried quiet dread now felt like mine again. All of them. The phone rang just past 9. Molly. "Grandma," she said, voice low. "Are you okay?" "I'm better than I've been in a long time. I'm sorry it all happened like that." I paused. "I'm not. You did the right thing. You trusted your gut, and you gave me the chance to trust mine." She didn't say anything for a moment, then softly. "I was scared, but I couldn't let them do it. You didn't. And I'll never forget that." We hung up with the kind of goodbye that doesn't need more than silence. I stood by the window for a while after tea cooling in my hands. Across the street, Mrs. Henderson's porch light flicked on like a quiet nod in the dark. I hadn't lost a son. I'd protected everything he thought he could take. And somewhere in that truth, I found peace. I turned off the kitchen light, checked the locks one last time, and climbed the stairs to bed, knowing full well this wasn't the end of anything. It was just the first day of living without fear. What would you have done in her place? Comment below, hit like if this story gripped you, and subscribe for more powerful family dramas.